Ekabo, and welcome to another live stream of our Friday History Live. I am Ijuba. I am your host with the Ijuba Ode Otun. All right, before I begin today's live, let me offer the Iba. Opweni fun olorun, olumare oba jiki, mojiloni, mowogun neriaye, Iba ila orun, Iba iwo orun, Iba arriba, Iba gusu, Iba oba igba aye, Iba orun oke, Iba baba, Iba yeye, Iba atiwon orun. Ibashe igungun kiki igungun, Ibashe ori inu, Ipori atiwon orun. All right, so before I begin today's history reading, we are continuing on the topic of decolonizing our mind. And today I'm going to move into the second section that deals with the issue of power. All right, our first lesson dealt with the issue of learning to manage our unmanageable lives. So today now, we're going to look at understanding power and its role, and we're also going to look at powerlessness once we are clear on how the concept of power affects our lives. All right. Now, power is the ability to create. And in our case, we are trying to create the reality that we are desirous of having for ourselves and for our future generation as a community. Now, beside power having the ability, meaning having the ability to create, let's look now at the etymology of the word power. Power comes from the Latin word potere. All right? Potere is to be able. It also means to have the capacity. All right? Now, it also appears in Latin as the word Puer, P-O-U-E-R, which describes the ability to act or to do. All right? And the words associated to it is strength, vigor, might, especially in battle. It is also associated to efficacy, which is broken down into control, mastery, lordship, dominion, ability or right to command or control, legal power or authority. These are all breakdowns of what power represents. Authorization, military force, and an army. All right? Now, beside potere, puer, there is also the word povior, which is also associated to the Latin version of the word power, and it means to be able. All right? So now let's take this in context of us not having the ability to control our lives, and now taking back that power in terms of having the ability to create, to be able, to have capacity, to have strength, to have might, to have vigor, all right, to have the authority and the legal power, as well as authorization, all right? Pouvoir means to be able, all right? So, let's look again at the unmanageability of our lives in relation to the word power. So when we talk about the ability to create, When we look at powerlessness now, what we are talking about is lacking might, lacking fortitude. All right? We're talking about not having a sense of self-government, not having autonomy. All right? So, powerlessness is the opposite of power. So that means not having the ability to exercise autonomy, meaning having the discipline to control what goes on in your life, being able to rule over the affairs of your lives. All right? Now, where does Ifa fit into all of this? Let me talk a little bit about autonomy as it relates to Ifa. When a person becomes initiated, what a person does is a divination at initiation. That divination gives one a blueprint which dictates what a person agreed to come here to do. So once one becomes aware of one's destiny or purpose, then that would put one in alignment where one is able to govern one's self in what we know as character, playing a specific role in fulfilling one's true life purpose. And that gives a person a true sense of autonomy, a true sense of knowing what one needs to do and doing it. All right, remember again, autonomy has to do with self. All right, and nomos have to do with control, and control would be related to customs, laws based on what was assigned or allotted to a person. All right, remember nomos is also related to the word nem, which means to assign, allot, or to take. All right, so in closing off on the issue of power, control, autonomy, capacity, and ability, I would read for you a doctrine that was introduced by Kant, who was a popular philosopher. He said, the doctrine of the will giving itself its own law based on conscience. All right, this in a nutshell is how he described being autonomous, exercising one's ability to function in a way that is consistent with one's true purpose. All right, so that ends this part of the lesson on decolonizing the mind. All right, I'm going to start as usual by reading from this book, which is Immigration into the West Indies in the 19th Century by K.O. Lawrence. All right, as I do every week, I give a little context. This book describes what occurred in Trinidad and in some of the other Caribbean islands at the end of emancipation, when the former slaveholders, the plantation owners, had to replace the free labor of Africans. All right. I am here reading from chapter 8. The fact that beneath the